We are on our way to building department, turning in the site plan, which shows building placement and where the other things, structures and stuff on the property are located at, to verify that the new building isn't going to be built on top of anything else or in the way of anything else. Along with that, we're turning in the new drawings and the application for it. We'll get all that submitted in person today, pay for the fees, and then it'll go through the review process. And then we just kind of wait to hear back on if there's any adjustments or things that they want changed to those drawings. Just kind of one of the first steps of getting the permit is submitting all this to the building department. We try to get it all put together the best we can ahead of time, that when we bring it in, they have a complete submitted package with all the building details on it. So I'll try to map out my day. A lot of the permit process is prep work and preparing before I even get on the road. Once a customer signs with us, the project location and like building size information that gets sent over to me, and then I'll start looking at which county or township or which building department needs the paperwork. So I'll call around, I'll figure out where the customer's address is at, and I'll start making phone calls to the different counties or building departments to see if we need anything for, maybe we need a zoning permit, or maybe we need a variance to be able to build that building on their property. So I'll call around, I'll get all that information, I'll ask what details they want on the drawings, on the site plan, and then I'll try to map out my day so I can hit multiple different projects, different building departments all in the same day, and submit everything that they need for each one kind of as I go. Try to hit more places than just one. Each one's different. So actually this particular one today, we did the initial review and it got, I had to go through a variance and it was denied. So when that happens, you can appeal the deny. You can do a couple other things to still try to get the permit. And that's what we've done. We've made our alterations on the drawings. We've made some adjustments, changed the way that we're going to build it, noted the things that they wanted noted. And now I'm going to bring it in again for a second review. And then we'll know. Usually it takes a couple weeks after you submit it, 3 weeks or so, 3 or 4 weeks. And then they'll call us back. We'll do a hearing. We'll go in front of the board, and then they'll vote and decide whether or not the project will be approved or not. So, and that happens. That's a part of that review process, which is always slightly frustrating because you never know. Each building department's different, each location is different, their requirements are different. So that's why me calling ahead, trying to ask all the right questions of how they want things, how they want it drawn up, how they want it marked up, will help their review process go smoother, and hopefully not, after 3 or 4 weeks of them going through that review, them coming back and needing a lot of changes or adjustments. So during that time, I'll usually call. I'll give them about a week, and then I'll usually call and just check in on it, see how things are going. If it's, where is it at in the pile? Was there anything that they maybe noticed right off the bat that, hey, we noticed you were missing this, or we didn't see this but forgot to tell you, can you send it to us now? So I always try to call and just check on the projects. That way they're not just end up on a pile in a desk somewhere, and 4 weeks later it's like, oh yeah, we need to review that project. So I try to stay in touch with them on each project, check them. A lot of the building departments actually like kind of seeing or hearing from the owner themselves, and that's kind of where we as the builder, we're handling and doing as much of the permit process as we can, but there's still some parts where the owner, we will need them to maybe sign a few documents on the application, confirm their site, so at the beginning I'll send them kind of a welcome email to the customer, show an overhead shot of their property, and we'll need them to verify where they want the building to go, roughly, and then also where any underground utilities might be. So well, septic, that is the two main things that all the building departments want to know. How far away is your well from your building that you want to build? How far away are you from your septic? Because we'll need health department sign-offs in order to get your building permit, confirming that you're not building the new building on top of or too close to the well or septic. So there's some things that, as the owner, will still need your help with as far as filling out some of that paperwork, signing off on it. That way we can submit it and turn it into those building departments. And once it's turned in, the owners are more than welcome to also call in on themselves, check on it, see how things are going, ask questions. I try to keep all the customers updated also along the process, let them know, hey, it is in for review, now we're just waiting. It's been a week or two. They say they need another week or two to finish. That way they know kind of where we're at in the process, and then just kind of keep them updated as we're going through it. Because once it's all submitted, it is kind of just a sit and wait. We kind of wait and hope, that they don't require anything additional or more. Some cases, they do. So after their review, you waited 3 or 4 weeks, and then it's like, oh, you know what, for your project, we need you to have engineering and you need to have site drainage. And then when that comes up, that we let the customer know, hey, your project's going to require actual engineered drawings and site drainage from a drainage company. And we work with a couple different companies that do that type of work. So we'll help the customers in picking which company they'd like to go with, help them get with the pricing, to pick those companies out, because that process is another typically 3 to 4 weeks, 4 weeks a month, depending on how extensive the project is, what the property looks like, and how much work has to go into like a drainage plan. Some projects need maybe a pond, some kind of a way to disperse the water coming off the new building so it doesn't flood their neighbors or doesn't flood their own property. So some of the building departments want to see that you're accounting for drainage on top of having it a fully engineered building, stamped and sealed from an engineer. So when that comes up, we help kind of put those parties together, put the pieces together. We'll still deal directly with the engineers and drainage company, but we don't normally know that until we get through that first initial review. Sometimes the building departments will tell us right at the start, hey, any building at this size or this square footage or in this location is going to require those items, the drainage or engineering, and then we can let the customer know right at the beginning, hey, your project's going to need this, and before we'll even turn in anything for the review, we can go ahead and submit a full package by getting that drainage and getting the engineer drawings done. Again, another reason why I call ahead and check and try to get as many of those answers as I can, ask those questions and see what each project is going to require to build. Before you even get to, okay, we've signed a contract and we want to build this, something that the owner could do on their own just to check is to make just a phone call to their local building department, wherever they're at, and tell them what they're wanting to do. Like, hey, I live here, here's my address, and I would like to build this type of a building, this size, this height. What would I need to do in order to build that? And then that way, by the time they get to signing a contract with us, they can already know ahead of time of what they're going to need. And that'll also help, their expectation of timing as well. If the owner is able to kind of check ahead of time, they can let us know, hey, I've already called. They said I don't need engineering, I don't need drainage. All I need to do is fill out the building permit, submit the drawings, show the site plan, and it'll go through a normal review, and we should be able to get a permit. So that's a great thing that customers can do as a proactive thing before they even get signed, to go ahead and get this information put together. That way, when you submit your permit, they're giving you the right information, the right drawings, the right things that are required to get the building permit. So yeah, they don't have to know a whole lot. They don't have to, you know, it's not super tricky or complicated. They're able to just make the phone call, ask just those questions. I live at this address. I would like to build something along this size, this height. This is the size of my property. What is allowed to be? What am I allowed to build? And then they'll be able to tell you, okay, you can build up to 1,200 square feet, but anything bigger, you're going to have to go through a variance and ask permission to build something bigger. And sometimes it is tricky. Sometimes you'll make those calls, and if you don't, you know, who to talk to or who to ask or how to go about getting that information, it may, you know, you may not get a straight answer right from the start. You may have to wait. They may say, okay, I'll take your information. But that's where us here at Milmar, I do all that from the start, so you don't have to worry about it. Once you do have the signed contract with us, I'll start making those calls to figure it out for you. That way, even if you don't want to check ahead of time, but you've got the room to place the building, typically you're going to be allowed to do it, or we just may have to tweak some things here and there to make it work. All right, so this particular customer is on a corner lot, and he wasn't able to quite fit the building around the corner of the house. So the only reason he's going through a variance is for that reason. So his building juts out just enough to be in front of the house. So if you were to drive by, you would see that building. So we applied for the variance. We went through that process, but some areas have their own like HOA rules and regulations also, and this particular project has that, and we weren't, the customer wasn't quite aware, and we weren't aware that they didn't want or didn't allow this particular type of sized building to be built in their HOA. So even though the building department was fine with it, their HOA was not going to allow it. So we had to redesign the building, redraw it up in a different way, built a little bit different, and that was all they needed. They just needed it to be drawn up, shown that it will comply with their rules. So sometimes you run into that where you just have to make adjustments or updates to the drawings for it to be allowed, but that's where we have our in-house designer. He's also able to make those drawings and adjustments, and then we can resubmit and go through the process. So it's been about, this one's probably been 2 months or so, and then once we get it submitted today, we should hear back for the schedule. It should be the middle of the month, so it'll be another 2-3 weeks, and then we'll have the hearing date. But what's great about it is, once again, if it goes to the variance, if they approve it, the permit some places can get the very next day. You can go back, okay, I was approved for my variance, and they're like, okay, here you go, here's your building permit, pay for the fee, and they'll give you the building permit right away. So this is basically an application form. The owners filled it out. They've put in there the reason why. Again, that's why it's important on some of the variances for the owners to be involved, because they have to write out also and put in their reason why they need it. So that's what this is. So I'm picking up right now the filled out copies of what and the reason why they should be allowed to build it. I'll be turning this in and we should be able to get a permit, hopefully. Some of them are smooth, some of them are easy, just depends on where you're located at and the size and type of project that you're building. But your typical builders don't want to mess with, because of just the time. You know, your builder wants to be able to price a project out for the customer, and you know, within a couple weeks, you know, they've ordered the materials and they're able to show up and build the building. You know, for them, that's the best scenario. If they can sell a project and get it built within a couple weeks, that's the best scenario. But a lot of the building departments, a lot of the counties, a lot of the different building areas now are requiring more and more paperwork, more and more permitting and documentation in order to get the permit, which scares away maybe some of the other builders because it's just so much time and effort to go to get all that stuff, turn it all in, deal with talking to the different inspectors and figuring out what's needed, what's required to even get the permit to build. So a lot of times the builders will just say, okay, you're the owner, you deal with it, you figure it out. Once you have the permit, call us and then we'll put you on the schedule and figure out when we can start. Where here, once you sign with us, that starts me right away working and pushing on, okay, what do we need, how do we get the permit, and how fast can we get it, that way we can start your project right away. But we started off right by getting the right permits, being registered with the different departments, and being able to start your project in a good standing with the building departments as we go. Yeah, and we're gonna put with the letter. Right. Right, good side, great side.
There you go. And here.
Because it already went through. He just made it smaller to make the rest of them happy. And then change the way it's going to be built. All right, so on this project, we had one small change, had to come down, get it re-signed off before we submit it up to the building department. And one of the good things about getting a permit for a project is it also shows the building department that you're going to be building it correctly and doing the right things by getting the permit before you start your project. So it also builds trust with the building departments. They get to know you, you get to know them, and then it helps with the overall project when you have to do inspections and go through the different steps to complete it if you start off right by getting the permit and getting it done correctly. This process, sometimes it's more than one trip and getting all the right paperwork turned in and filled out. So that's it. We got it all done, it's turned in, and we're good to go. So now we'll wait. They'll put together the variance letter, and then they'll send that to me or I'll pick it up, and then we'll mail it out to all the neighbors. And then we have the hearing within 3 weeks of today or this weekend. And they'll email that and let us know when the day is and what time it is. And then we'll show up for the hearing, same building, same place, typically at the building departments. And then you'll go in front of the board and plead your case, show them what you're doing, your project, and then they'll vote on it, and then you'll go and get your building permit. Okay, so once it's through the variance process, the building permit should be able to be issued within a day to a week after they approve it. And then at that point, we always wait till we actually have the building permit in hand, and then we'll start ordering the materials, and that could take 2-3 weeks or so to get the material ordered. And then our crew leader for that area, for that project, he'll start looking at the schedule and place the project on the schedule, and just depending on the location and how many projects are ahead of that one, it'll be scheduled. Usually within 4, 6, 8 weeks, just depending on how many projects are ahead of that particular project in that location. Thank you. Bye. All right, on to the next one. They just called me and I have to have it done and submitted by tomorrow. So now I'll make my adjustments, get the project put together, and get that submitted so we can get the permit and keep the process moving. But that's where, with us here at Milmar, I will handle it for you. You don't have to worry about it, and we'll make sure that it's submitted and done correctly so that you have a permit to start your project. Some places are more cookie cutter where they have a flat fee of $150, $250, and that's your building permit fee. Others have kind of a sliding scale depending on the size of the project. It's charged at a certain percentage. So the average, there is not necessarily an average permit fee, just because each place is different and they may have multiple things kind of lumped together within that building permit fee. But a range that we kind of run into, $250 to sometimes $1,000, depending on, or more, just depending on your project, size of your project, if it's commercial, if you're going to be finishing it out, if it's more of a home, you could run into higher permit fees with that. Typically your standard like pole barn type project won't have quite as high of a permit fee. Some areas they may charge $400 to $500 for like the variance, and then additional $400 to $500, $600 for the permit fee. So it just depends. Most places you do have to make the payment. You either have to go in person and pay with either a cash or check. So that is another step that, depending on the location and where it's at, that it's, you know, nice to have the owner kind of a part of the process and know the steps, so that they can be aware of what may be coming as far as those fees, or that they'll have to go in and make that payment to keep the process moving. Sometimes we're able to do them electronically or online if we're able to fill it out on like an online portal. Through some of the building departments, you're able to do that, and then, you know, usually they're not quite as large of a fee, and then we can make those payments and get, you know, a reimbursement thing figured out with the customer then.